Alright, we're about to do a lift kit on a 2012 Club Car Precedent. We're going to be using RHOX Lift-503, which is their heavy-duty A-Arm Lift Kit. Let me get all the contents out of the box and I'll show you what's in there. Alright, here's all the contents. You got your front A-Arm right here, 2 bags of hardware, your 2 upper A-Arms, then this stuff's for the rear. So your 2 blocks, you have 2, these go on the top of the blocks in between the leaf, and this goes on the very bottom to keep your axle centered, which I'll go over that in a little bit, but not too much in the box. It's all pretty much ready to go. So we're gonna go ahead and jack up the golf cart and get it ready to take off the wheels. The best spot to jack up the stock height golf carts, see that little bar right there sticking out, that little plate? That's where I like to jack it up from. So go ahead and jack it up from there, then we'll put our jack stands on the back of the frame. Got the jack stands here, got it jacked up on that plate. Alright. So I usually put it right there on the back of the frame. I mean, you can technically put it on near the front. This just gets it out of the way so I can work without worry about it. Alright, got the jack stands in place, so I'm gonna let this down slowly until it rests on there. Good on this side. Good on this side. Now, what I like to do is drop down the jack and then just make sure that it's not going to fall down on me. So it's in place. We're ready to take off the front bumper and the wheel caps come off easy. Flathead screwdriver right in there. These are already broken, so I'm not too worried about damaging them. Got 4 lug nuts in there. All you gotta do is just zap them off. Ready to come off. Now we are gonna be saving the hub, which is this guy. Sometimes I get stuck, so you have to take a rubber hammer and hit them until they. All right, now that we got both hubs off, we're gonna remove this front bumper, which is 2 bolts. They're right there. It is. They put these in upside down. No big deal though. Normally it's facing downward, which means I have to get a different wrench for the top. But there's one on both sides. Take it off and this will slide right off. So 2 bolts are out, just slides right out. These just sit inside the frame right here. Now we have everything exposed. Now we're gonna take off the nuts for the steering rack, which is right here, one on each side. Gotta take those 2 out, and then these slide out pretty easy. Right, what you gotta do is you put your wrench up top to hold it, and then you put your socket on the bottom, and then when you zap it, you hold the top so it stops spinning. If you zapped it without this on there, this top piece would just start spinning. So you need something to lock it on the top while you zap the nut off the bottom. Okay, just zap the nut off there on the bottom. These you don't have to take a hammer to knock them loose or anything. As soon as you take the nut off, you just kind of move it back and forth. They just come out. Very simple to remove. Now we're gonna be removing the steering rack and a few other bolts to get this to get the A-arm to come down. So you have 3 bolts holding the steering rack on, as you can see right there. But in addition, we have to loosen this bolt right up here. A little easier to look at through the hole here. You gotta loosen that bolt up so we can get the steering rack to move, because this will need to have spacers put in. All right, now that we got all 3 of those bolts out, let me loosen the top bolt over here. We're gonna be taking out this bolt. Same for the other side. The 4 that are underneath here, which you see the top of it, there's 4 underneath here. And then when you lift your steering rack, you got the 2 more right behind there. Once you get all those out, then you basically just hit it with a rubber hammer. Right here, it drops out, pulls out that A-arm. Then you hit over here, it drops out the A-arm over there. These are the only 2 bolts we're gonna be saving, which came out of the A-arm in the back behind the steering rack. We're saving these because we're going to reuse those when we put the new A-arm through there. Now that everything is loose, you just smack it with a hammer and it comes down. Same thing for the other side. Now the whole A-arm is out. You have 2 packs. The long bolts go for the rear of the golf cart, so this pack's going to stay together until we go back there to put the blocks in. This one is all for the front, so we're going to use this pack and start getting these parts put on. So I saved these 2 for the new A-arms. So we're going to slide them back for the A-arm was before. Okay, got the A-arm in. So basically just you put it right through here. You line up the hole, zap it down. Make sure it's curving towards the front. And the reason for that is because you need to bolt your shock back into there. What I like to do is go ahead and open up the bag and go ahead and separate all the hardware. I know where everything goes, but it's always easier for me just to reach over, grab, you know, where are the bolts that I'm already working with from that pile. Like these are gonna go in first. They're actually gonna hold the new suspension into those 4 holes. So it comes with these right here, also with Loctite. So you want to put Loctite, on the thread, just so they don't back out. Depending on how rough the terrain you're on, can cause a lot of vibrations. And this is a heavy duty lift kit, so it is gonna be a stiff ride. But coat them like that, and then I'll thread them in and show you where they go. I like to thread one in just to hold the suspension up. As you can see, it's still moving. And then I just grab the next one, thread it in, next, and once I get them all hand threaded, then I go ahead and zap them all in. Since I got them all hand threaded in, now it's just time to zap them down. There's no washer on the bottom. You just use this without a washer. And I usually go across. So they're all tight. Now we're going to be flipping this part up and getting it into the A-arm. Actually, first let's get this in here because it's easier to mount this up whenever we already have the shock mounted. So we're going to be using those bolts, washer on the top and the bottom, with 1 nut. So right there, this will move, so it's easy to get this thing lined up. That's why I go and get this out of the way now, opposed to later. Now that we got these 2 shocks tightened, let's go ahead and put the steering rack on. It's not difficult, might as well do it now. You're going to be using these spacers, and then here's your 3 bolts that you're going to be using to put it on with. So just a washer on the front. So this is going to go through here like that. Then your washer goes, your spacer goes right behind it, and you just put it in position, and then hand thread it on there. Then once you lock it down, then we get in the back over here and tighten that bolt right back up. Let me get the bolts and I'll show you. Now it's time to put the A-arm into the suspension, lower suspension. So what we're going to do is, I've already started over here. We're going to use the second hole from top. So 1, 2, that's where that guy is. And sometimes they don't go all the way down just by pushing them in, so you have to sometimes zap them in. As you can see, it's in the second hole. So we're going to put 3 bolts in it. I'll zap that one down. And then on the bottom, we're going to be using 1 nut, 1 washer. And then just hand thread them, and then go ahead and lock down the side. I normally use a jack to lift it up. It makes it easier for this to go into the A-arm with the jack pressing it up, opposed to me trying to fight it and everything like that. So once I get these tightened down, I'm just going to loosen the jack, get it out of the way, and I'm just going to work on the other side. Okay, now that we got both sides locked down, we're going to go ahead and hook up the steering tie rod into the spindle. Very simple. You just push the guy in. You'll see thread on the bottom. You just take your leftover hardware that you took off of here that you saved, thread on there, lock this piece down on the top, zap it from the bottom until that piece is flush with the spindle. All right, just zapped it down. Now it's flush with the spindle. It's tight, and then I just go ahead and work on the other side, get that one tight. Okay, and then you put your hub back on. Sometimes they go on real smooth if it's the newer Presidents. On the older ones, just from age and dirt and buildup, they can go on a little bit not as smoothly. So you can smack it with a rubber hammer to get it go on, and then once you have enough thread showing, then you can put this on and then zap it down, because it'll just pull it back and secure it. Okay, the front end is all done. Got everything in, locked tight. Steering rack, good. A-arm's good, everything's locked in. So since I'm doing a light kit on this one, you know, you're supposed to save your front hardware for here. If you're putting your bumper back on, slide it back on, put your bolts in. But for like this car, I'm doing a light kit on, so there's no point in me putting the bumper back on because I'm just gonna have to take the bolts right back out. So I'm just gonna put the bolt through here and then just throw the hardware on the bottom just so it stays there for later on whenever I do the light kit. But the front's done. Let's move on to the back. So you wanna put your jack underneath the axle and then jack it up from there. And then you'll get your jack stands in place right where the frame is at. You'll walk over there. Right where the frame is at, and then you can lower it down. You do need to keep your jack in place to support the axle while you're working. So now it's being supported by the jack stands. Now just bring it back up and just snug it against that axle so it doesn't fall down while you're working. Now that we got the wheels off, we're actually going to release the brake. You don't want it pressed down while you're working back there because it's going to make it a little bit harder to move that axle around with the brake cables pulling against you. So right now I'm going to take off the rear shock, which is just a bolt there on the bottom, and then I'm going to loosen up the U-bolt on the other side, just this on the other side, just a little slack, so whenever I take this apart I have enough slack for this axle to drop down. With the bolt being tight on the other side, it may not be easy for you to push down the axle, get your block in, and align everything up. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen up everything. So I'm on the other side. Just gonna get this loose, just so it has some play so I can drop the axle down on the other side once I get everything taken. Okay, we're back on the other side. So let's go ahead and take off the U-bolt. So there's your U-bolt, not saving it, don't need it, it's trash. Now we're gonna get that shock off. All right, got that. Now we're just gonna lift it up. The other end stuck to there. So we're gonna save these because we're gonna need these whenever we get the actual drop below the leaf. Okay, so now here's the leaf. We're gonna take out the two bolts that are holding it in, which is right here, and you got a nut on the other side, and then towards the front of the golf cart, there's the other one. So we're gonna take that one out, and then there is a clip back here holding your brake line on. So when that nut comes off, we're just gonna push the brake line off of there. Okay, now that we got the hardware out of both sides, the leaf just falls out. You may have to push on it to get it to pop down, but there's no bolts holding it at that point. Now note that the bolt in right here, it's not centered. So if you're doing heavy duty leaves like I am, easiest way is when you drop this down, just slide it back without flipping it around. That way I can line up the new leaf. So for this lift kit, we're gonna be doing a heavy duty rear leaf, which on the original one you have one leaf. This one's dual action, which means it has two solid, and then the third is only going to come into play whenever this squeezes towards it, and then this heavy duty one will go into play then. The reason why it's important to slide your leaf out like that is, again, because of that bolt. So as you can see, the bolts don't line up with it this way. So and that way it does. So the heavy duty leaf's gonna go in this way. Let's get that started. First, let's lower down the jack to get that motor set and crooked. So now we need to get the block, and then we can slide in the leaf. Okay, here's everything we have for the back, which again, all the hardware for the back is in the same pack. And both blocks. If you look, you'll see the block is angled, so it needs to slant towards the front. If you put it on this way, slanting towards the rear of the golf cart, your brake cables will not line up. Put it this way, slides right into that groove, and then you can smack it down with a rubber hammer, and then your leaf goes at the top of it. All right, now that I have my bolts back through, going through, and also have this little bracket right here on that bolt, I don't tighten everything down right away. I actually leave it loose while I'm working. And then once I get everything assembled on this side, then I go ahead and tighten everything down. Okay, so you have this little piece here to center up the bottom of it. Okay, the bottom of it, as you can see exactly where the leaf was running before. So we're gonna take this, put it right in that hole. Now we're gonna make it pretty much exactly what that leaf was before. Then it lifts right up underneath the block, and then you have your holes there and there for your long bolts to go through. So you're gonna use a washer on both sides, and that's what this last plate comes into play for. You want to angle it towards your shock. You know, obviously put it on backwards, so now we're close to your shock, so make sure it's on right. I am going to have to pull the axle back while I'm working, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, get this bolt going through there, through the hole in the bottom, and then snug it up. I'm just going to hand tighten it. All right, you're definitely going to need both hands for this. It is a little bit of a struggle to get your block lined up. A little hard to see, but the block has a hole right here, and that's where that bolt, the little bolt right there, it's going to set right into that hole. So you do have to kind of pull your axle back to get it to kind of snap into there, and then you're able to put your two bolts going through. Again, there's that little small plate I put in, and on the bottom there's the nut and the washer on both sides. I'm going to snug this up. I'm not going to tighten down on the way yet, but I am going to go ahead and tighten down my leaf. You just need to snug this up just so when you loosen up the other side, the axle has at least some pressure to where the motor doesn't try to roll over on you. So I'm gonna go and tighten these up. Okay, same deal as before. I'm gonna take off the bottom nut for the shock. I'm gonna take out the U-bolt. I'm gonna take out both sides of the leaf. Now, the jack is still supporting the axle. So once I take everything off, this thing should not drop down because I have the jack supporting it. Now, once I have everything off, then I'm gonna lower down the jack, get this thing low enough to put my block in, and then go from there. Okay, axle has dropped down. As you can see, the motor is still sitting right there, supported by the jack. I'm gonna slide this out so I can get my heavy duty leaf and set it next to it. Got my new leaf here. I've already pushed in the bushings. I've already got it ready to go. The nut lines up. Now it's time to drop the axle. All right, now that I have the axle lowered, here's the block. Again, the slant is towards the front of the golf cart. Just gonna slide it into that channel there. Didn't have to use a rubber hammer that time. Now it's time to slide in the leaf over the block. All right, now that I got my leaf in, I just pushed the bolts through it. I haven't put the nuts on the back side of those bolts yet. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna jack up the axle to where the block will sit flush with that leaf. Okay, jacked it up. Then I had to move the block so it would snap in with that bolt right through the center of the block. Now, just gotta put the plate on right there, and then have to assemble this guy, which is just putting the bolt through with the nut on the other side, tighten it up. All right, got my long bolts going through. I've got my plate down here. Now nothing's tight yet, as you can see. I'm just lining it up, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and tighten down these two bolts to get this to come up. Now that the axle is lined up, I'm gonna go on the other side, tighten it all down, and then I'm gonna put this up here where it goes. Okay, one other thing. Run into this pretty often. So if this does not line up with your bolt right here, all you gotta do is get a flathead screwdriver, push it into there, separate it, get it spaced, and then you can slide it. And then once you have the correct length to get that to go up there, which is close right now, so it only has to go over about an inch, then just take some needle nose pliers, crimp that down, and then slide it on. Okay, got everything bolted in. So I got the bottom of the shock here tightened up. I got two long bolts tightened up. As you can see, the plate's right there on the bottom, so that's in. And I've got the bolts for the leaf in there. Now, I always like to go behind it and visually look. So you can see you've got that one. You can see the one in the back over there, the shock and your two long bolts that are tightened up. Same with the other side. Everything is tight. So now it's just time to jack it up and put the wheels on it. Okay, now that we have the lift installed, we need to check the brake cable. A lot of times the brake will be loose after you're done, but this one's tight, so I gotta loosen it up. So first you gotta take off your floor mat, which is simple. You got two bolts on each side, take those out, and then this pops outward, and then you just take out your floor mat. Then this normally has a push tree going through it right here. You just grab right here and it just pops up with it. So here's your brake cable. There's the adjuster right there. So you're gonna break this guy loose, which I've already done that, back it out, and then we're gonna loosen it up. And what it's doing is backing off of that bolt right there. So now we're getting a little bit better slack. Let's keep going. And the reason why you want to do this is so your brakes don't heat up. Like, you don't want to create a drag. So that feels good. It does have some slack there. I can continue to go if I want to get a little more slack, but that's fine right there. And you can just kind of push your golf cart to see that's rolling free. So that's good. I'm gonna actually lock this down now. And that's how you tighten the brakes on it or loosen them. Now, as far as aligning it goes, here is where you align it. So steering rack coming over. So you'll loosen up your nut here, and then a lot of times you got to push the tire outward. A lot of times you're gonna be setting in. So you just put your wrench right here where you see it actually has a spot for you to put your wrench on. Then you start rotating until, the way you do this is you're supposed to measure the outside of the front of the tire and then the inside of the tire behind it to the other side. Once the measurements are the correct length on both front and back of the tire, then it's aligned. I personally been doing this long enough to where I can look at it and see when the tire is straight. You know, like as you can see, that guy's straight. So I can just eyeball it from the back, and it's a whole lot quicker and easier. And not to mention, the steering wheel, I always put straight. So keep the steering wheel straight, and then you start to do your alignment, which you can see that one's straight as well. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe so you can see some more videos on how to customize or repair golf carts. Thanks for watching.